Let's go. Yeah, I've been around him for 16 years, okay? I've been around Neymar since 2010. Yeah, I covered the South American Under-20 Championship in Peru, where Brazil became champion and secured a spot for the 2012 Olympics. Yeah, I'm going to share a personal story, okay? Yeah, I like Neymar a lot. Why? In that South American tournament, I'm going to tell you some behind the scenes stuff. In that South American tournament, Neymar would go to, we were staying at the same hotel in a Peruvian city called Arequipa. Neymar would come to our room every day to play video games. So we played video games every day. It was me, Neymar, an ESPN reporter, and Bruno Vini. Occasionally, another player from that team would come by to play video games. So we used to talk a lot about that, about what he was going to become, what was going to happen. This was in January and February of 2011. He had just had that issue with Dorival at Santos about the penalty kick. So he wasn't called up for Brazil's friendly against France in Paris. It's that friendly where Hernanes kicks a French player in the chest and gets sent off. Neymar isn't there. He's at the South American Championship. Yeah, and then Neymar represents Brazil, and we secure the spot. So we built a really great relationship during that South American Championship. So from then on, whenever Neymar met that group from the South American Championship, he was always very welcoming to that small group of journalists who were there. And then the next game where I meet Neymar is his first game in Europe for the national team. I didn't cover that game for Match Life where he debuted and scored in the United States. But I did cover Neymar's first game in Europe, where he played against Scotland at Arsenal's stadium. We stayed in touch and have a great relationship. Neymar made his European debut there, and if I recall, scored 2 goals in that game. Yeah, and that's when Neymar's journey with the Brazilian national team begins. And we've been keeping in touch since then. 2012 Olympics, Confederations Cup, World Cup. Yeah, I always did a lot of stories with Neymar. In 2015, I had this crazy idea at work to tell Neymar's story through the tattoos on his body. So we went to a studio in Barcelona. He was really relaxed. He spent 4 or 5 hours with us in the studio recording. He took off his shirt, took off his clothes. Relax, he was only in swim trunks. Yeah, so I have a really good relationship with him over these 16 years. Yeah, so of course we expected more. The 2014 World Cup. I mean, I'm not defending him, okay? I'm just trying to put his whole situation into context. In the 2014 World Cup, he does really well. Yeah, he starts to drop off, maybe in the game against Chile. Brazil plays badly. We almost lost that game, that shot from Penilla that hit the post and didn't go in. We went to penalties, and it was decided there. And then he had that situation with Zuniga, who hit him in the back. He had a fracture and was out of the World Cup. And then we continued the cycle. After that, there was the cycle for 2018. Neymar had a metatarsal injury. And then we have that whole thing about him going down. Neymar goes down, doesn't go down, goes down, doesn't go down. And then there were the conversations we had in hotels, the conversations we had while playing video games. Neymar had a theory to avoid getting hurt, which was to jump before getting hit. The theory was as follows. If you have a tree twig stuck in the ground and you hit it, that tree twig breaks, it snaps. And if the twig is in the air and gets hit, it just flies. It doesn't take a hit hard enough to break. So he had this theory of never being planted on the ground and stuck there to take a hit. So he got injured a lot less. He had fewer problems, yeah, with getting hurt by injuries like that. And from the moment he stops doing that, he starts getting hurt. He gets the metatarsal injury. He has that tendency to hold onto the ball a little longer to trouble the opponent. So he starts getting injured. He gets injured in 2018. He gets to the World Cup and ends up playing the 2018 World Cup with a lot of fear. So he jumps in most of the plays. There's that story about diving, not diving, Neymar dives. Anyway, and then comes 2022 and we're expecting that Neymar again. He gets injured in the first game, a sprained ankle. And then he comes back in the round of 16 against Korea. He scores a goal, becomes our main creative force again. He scores that goal, which, in my opinion, is a great goal he scores against Croatia. He takes the ball in midfield, does the whole 1-2, gets into the box, and scores. Then we concede a goal, the game is tied, and we're eliminated on penalties. And then he starts the cycle for the 2026 World Cup well. He has 2 goals, if I'm not mistaken, in 3 games, and 1 assist, and then the injury happens. That's when I think Neymar's run really ends. Any chance for him to still be Neymar ended with that injury he had against Uruguay. If I'm not mistaken, in November 2023, and then he can't recover. He has to change his way of playing. He can't sprint anymore, not like he used to. And then there are a series of muscle injuries that he doesn't recover from, like that. Would I personally take Neymar? Yes, I would take Neymar. Personally, if I were the coach and noticed that Neymar was training well, would I put Neymar on the field? Yes, I would. I would start the game against Norway with him. I don't know if I would start him against Japan. Probably not, but I would start him against Norway. Now, yes, let's do a general analysis of Neymar as a national team player. He won the Olympics. He won a Confederations Cup, being one of the team's key players in 2013. Yeah, he didn't win a World Cup, but he's a player who has 80 goals. He's the top assist provider for the Brazilian national team. Yeah, he's the player who gave the most assists to Neymar, who in return also gave assists to Neymar. It was Oscar who stopped playing for the national team in 2015. That's 5 assists. In other words, no other player gave more assists to Neymar. I'm saying that Oscar stopped playing for the national team in 2015. So, like, the generation didn't help either. I mean, we had players who were way above average until 2022. I think that after the injury in 2023, Neymar needs to change his playing style. He's not the same player anymore. He won't be the player who makes those runs anymore. Yeah, he's a player who I think now he has already left the state of New Jersey where we are. He's in Orlando. Yeah, I don't have an estimate for when he'll return to Santos. Yeah, but I think Neymar will finish his stint at Santos at the latest by the end of this year, and then he'll move on to a new adventure, probably here in the United States. Yeah, to end his career. I think he still owes us a World Cup. Yeah, I think this generation, 92, didn't deliver what it could have delivered. We have a U20 World Cup title with this generation. Yeah, Oscar, Coutinho, Neymar, and Lucas didn't play in that World Cup. The World Cup in 2011 too, we won that one. Yeah, but it's a generation that lost more than it won. It didn't leave a legacy for the national team. So now we're moving on to a new generation. But if I had to give Neymar a score for his time in the national team, I think it would be 6, maybe 6.5 for everything he was able to provide us in football. I think that's fair. In some schools, he would pass the year. In others, he would have to take a final exam or make up for it, right? For his career, I give him a 9 because he won everything. He just didn't win a World Cup and wasn't the best in the world. The rest, he won it all. Champions, Club World Cup title, Libertadores, Copa do Brasil. Libertadores. He won everything there was to W in his career. He's world class. Fantastic player. Take off half a point there for the World Cup. That's it. He's a player we should appreciate. I enjoyed watching him too. Yeah, I really root for him personally. I don't discuss his personal life, okay? Yeah, I think we can't mix up his preference for A, B, or C. Yeah, whether he cheated on his wife or not, I don't agree with any of that. But his personal life isn't my concern. My discussion with Neymar is about his performance on the field. Like what he fails to do. Yeah, if he's delivering for his team and winning championships, great. I think I have to discuss this, whether he's doing well or not on the field. Like I said here, I think 2023 was the turning point in his career. For him, it was more about heading towards the end rather than having a streak of good performances and good games. I think in Brazil, he chose the wrong team to come to, even though he's a Santos fan, even though he is, if he had joined a more prepared team. I think he would get more out of his game than he will as the solution for this team. Yeah, the team depends a lot on him because players who have this kind of brilliance, yeah, they think ahead, right? Yeah, and then you need to have people who can connect with you, right? If you don't have at least a minimum level of quality there, you're not going to be the savior of that team. Yeah, anyway, let's see if this Santos can improve. If he can help Santos at least stay in Serie A anyway. But I think the tendency for Neymar is to finish this half year left at Santos and then move on to a more peaceful situation. Yeah, and then I have a discussion that's interesting for us to bring up. I don't know if this is the right time either, but I think that if Neymar weren't Brazilian, he would be much more valued than he is, you know? That's the impression I get. I think we see that here at the World Cup. We saw a lot of Ibrahimovic, Henry. Yes, several players spoke very highly of him regarding his on-field performance. I'm not talking about anything off the field. Talking about his soccer skills. And I think sometimes we mix up personal and professional matters too much. Of some players, not just him, but of some players. Yeah, to say if the guy is good or bad, if the guy anyway has a good or bad career. I think that's it. Another good point. Just to give context for the national team, okay? Yeah, the national team players. 20 players have already left here from Morristown, from the training camp where they were staying. It was a hotel that was reserved by the CBF, okay? They've already left. We still have 6 here. The ones who play in Brazil, the 4 from Flamengo, Everton, and Danilo from Botafogo. They're still around. Yeah, they travel tomorrow. We still don't have the time for that flight. The coaching staff will get a few days off. Ancelotti is going back to Canada. In fact, he's already returned to Canada to be with his family. He lives in Canada. And probably next month, he should return to the CBF to announce the squad for the first FIFA international window, just to give you some context. And wrap up this final chapter with the national team. Brazilian team here. So on Tuesday, they are returning to Brazil. Part of the coaching staff here. And the players in Brazilian football